General Alvin, thank you very much for your statement, and I want to thank you all for your statements. I want to express a couple things before I get to my questions. Number one, this budget puts a lot of pressure on you three gentlemen and the other branches of our military to make sure that our priorities are correct. That being said, we are living under a 1% increase budget cap that was negotiated in a bipartisan way by leadership. I don't think Senator Collins and I are going to be in conflict with this statement at all. I think this is totally inadequate. I think we've got to figure out a way to make sure at this dangerous time, which I believe is the most dangerous time in the world since the early 1960s, that we give you the money you need and then hold you accountable to make sure you spend it correctly. But I will here to tell you that from this senator's perspective, the amount that's in this budget, and I don't care if we're talking about Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, it doesn't matter, is inadequate. And I think it's inadequate because there was a decision made to put a 1% cap down months ago that was a bad decision. That being said, we will work with you and we will work in a bipartisan way to try to make sure that you have what you need for that deterrence and those priorities that you've already spoke of. I want to start by talking about recruiting. End strength for the Air Force in this budget holds it steady at 320,000. It's always been a challenge. It's a challenge right now to meet that number. The question I have is how confident are you, Secretary Kendall, that you'll be able to meet that number? And do you have enough people to, if you don't meet that number, do you have enough people to actually implement the modernization efforts?
Recruiting was a question.
Yes.
We're actually doing very well this year. The active force is on track at this point to essentially meet its goals. In fact, we're looking at revising the goals up slightly. The reserves are doing well also. The Guard has improved their performance over last year, but is not quite meeting their target. So we took a number of steps. General Alvin led a group, a task force that, when he was the Vice Chair, Chief of Staff, that changed some of our policies to expand the envelope of the people that we would bring in. We did not lower our standards, but we made some adjustments. That helped a lot. We increased our efforts in recruiting in general. We provided better information technology, so our recruiters could be out recruiting instead of at their computers. And we increased the size of the force. We also asked throughout the force people to go interact more. The biggest problem we have with recruiting is the propensity to serve in the U.S. has declined. And a lot of that is lack of familiarity with the military. So we've taken a number of steps to try to reach out and communicate what the opportunities are in the military. So I'm very comfortable with the trajectory as it exists now. I think we're in good shape, as I said, for the active and the reserves, and I think we're making good progress on the Guard. The Space Force has not had an issue with recruiting. General Alvin may want to add a little bit to that.
No, I think the Secretary has it exactly right. We're never satisfied because we know it can turn on a dime. And so in addition to all those that the Secretary has mentioned, we're really reinforcing sort of the value proposition, the sense of purpose, and this idea that we are in a time of consequence, and just reinforcing that there is broader purpose in serving in the military, and that familiarity with what we do. I think it's reaching out to more people, and we're starting to resonate as well.
The Sentinel project is a project that's near and dear to both Senator Hoeven and me. There's about $3.7 billion is allocated to Sentinel, and this is to replace the Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missile. There have been cost increases and schedule delays, and quite frankly, I believe the Air Force is going to make a decision on the path forward in June. But quite frankly, we're running against, in my perspective, running against some real-time issues if we're going to get these replaced in the 3 ICBM bases by 2036. I know that you recused from this, Secretary Kendall, so I will go with General Alvin with the question. How committed is the Air Force to replacing Minuteman III? Do you believe that you have, do you believe the Air Force has the folks in position to manage this program? And do you think we'll be able to get it done on time? That time being 2036.
Well, Senator, as you know, we have to recapitalize. We have to ensure that we have a robust and effective triad. And of course, the ICBM leg of that triad is the most responsive, and that has a great deterrence effect. So we will remain committed to the recapitalization. And as we look at the Nunn-McCurdy process playing out, we are supporting that, and we are continuing our engineering and manufacturing development as that occurs. But regardless of what the decision is in July, we remain committed to ensuring that recapitalization in whatever form that takes. The Office of Secretary of Defense has the overall decision authority. We're supporting that with facts and data, but we are certainly committed to ensure that regardless of what the outcome of that committee, we will ensure we have a safe and reliable and effective triad in the future.
Well, I think it's critically important. I just think it's critically important, and I think that if we don't get a good, solid timeline about when things are going to happen, and I anticipate that's going to happen in June, then we can anticipate that we'll never hit that 2036 mark.
And I will add to that, if I could, Senator, that we have internally, we have ensured that we're having leadership. Part of the reevaluation that we've done within the Air Force is we have elevating to a two-star general the Program Executive Office for ICBMs, and ensuring that we can continue to provide the focus and the overall guidance that's needed to support whatever decision that comes out of the Nunn-McCurdy review.
I have some additional questions, but there will be a second round, at least for me. Senator Collins.